Good afternoon and welcome yet again to another episode of Never Punt, Never Parlay. It's championship week. I'm excited to be here. I'm your host, Parker Fleming. Alongside me, as always, my co-host, Douglas Farmer. Douglas, how are you today?
Parker, I'm doing pretty well. We've reached championship week. We have some futures to get to that bring us ever-living hope. And we have some games where there are intriguing possibilities, and we're going to hit most of them. We're going to hit 9 out of the 10 with interest. And, of course, we will talk about the 10th anyway. And it gets to the point in the year where there's a little bit – it's harder to find value in the board because the bookmakers are sharper when there's fewer games. So it's good to remember that, good to acknowledge it up top, that it gets tougher this time of year. Be cautious. Don't bet games just because there are fewer games.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good word, and we're seeing some of that market efficiency crop up here as some line movements in the last couple days, and even the last couple hours has been very, very
last couple of minutes.
Interesting. We are, of course, part of the Hammer network of content creators. We are on Hit the Books HQ, the YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to that. Make sure you check out the Hammer. You can find all their stuff, sports, NHL, NBA, all sorts of off-season stuff. NFL is still going strong. So even as college football is a couple of weeks away, we got some ball games, but even as college football is winds down in the next couple of weeks, Hammer has a ton of great content out there. So make sure you check that out. In the meantime, while you're here, would love to see you in the comments. Tell us your favorite bets. There's only 10 games, so we're going to cover all of them. Tell us your favorite plays. Tell us where your eye is on the board this week, and should be a fun show as we try to cover 10 games in our 40 minutes. We'll see if we can get through them.
We do already have Dusk in the comments. Dusk, we love you too. Appreciate you showing up every week.
Love's a big word, but love the show. Okay, that's great. I thought he said we love you, and I was like, love's a big word. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. All right, we'll do a recap. We were 3-3 last week. I want to say 4-3, even though we added that there because the Sam Houston cashed. So Douglas, you were 2-1. I was 2-2. Saved my bacon on the impulse last week, which is a perverse incentive for making impulse decisions.
Can I get a little bit of pat on the back as the one who recommended? Hey Parker, have you thought about the money line at all? Can I get a little bit
of
it?
Love that. Absolutely. Brain is fried here on a Tuesday. Always love the voice on my shoulder telling me to do the right thing. And we're both up now to 21-16. You have that in the note, but does that mean I'm 22-16 because of the Sam Houston play?
Again, as the one who recommended it, let's just split the credit for that in half. And
I'm taking full credit of that.
We're tied on the season on show plays at 21-16. I have fought my way back. And while I want us to go 6-0 every week, if we have to go 5-1, I want to be the 3-0. If we have to go 4-3, I want to be the 2-1.
I like it. No, I like the competition aspect. Absolutely. I'm up by a game is what the bottom line is there.
Producer Jacob, you can't throw that in the chat. But I was the one who suggested it. I want some.
But we'll see. Speaking of just getting into recap and looking back and last week, Sam Houston State, I mean, by all accounts, should have lost that game. It was very, very funny. That's not the funniest part about this, though. The funniest part about that game is that Middle Tennessee decided they were just going to fight Sam Houston after the game. And so they missed a field goal and did it. You can see over there on the Did We Really Get Beat That Bad chart that Sam Houston was the biggest point differential or biggest success rate differential for a winner in last week. They got outgained by almost 60 yards. They just turnovers helped them, and they capitalized on some finishing drives, and they played that scrappy, lovable Sam Houston State football, finishing the season 3-9. Good for them. They've been good to us at times this year with that, but altogether a hilarious performance there to cash not only the underdog against the spread, but as an outright win too.
You mentioned that fight, and I just pulled up the video to make sure I had my memory correct. I don't have his name in front of me, but you of all people should appreciate giving credit. Sam Houston State had I presume, a defensive lineman wearing number 0, who, as that fight starts, puts his helmet back on to get into the scrum. That is being a smart big man right there. Credit to Sam Houston State, number 0, whoever you are. You know how to handle those things. In a game that did not include a fight, but perhaps should have, maybe it would have been more entertaining. Michigan 30, Ohio State 24. Again, an anomaly on the did you really get beat that board spread chart. Michigan, I felt kind of controlled that game.
Yes, absolutely. This is another interesting one because Michigan did have a negative success rate differential. We saw that Ohio State did have more opportunities and they blew those opportunities. They punted instead of going for it. They missed a couple field goals. They had a couple turnovers, and Michigan really got into cruise control and does Michigan things. So Ohio State, I think when you see that negative success rate bar, what you want to say is Ohio State had their opportunities and then they didn't capitalize on them early. And then Michigan said, "I dare you to come back and beat us," and just knew they couldn't. So it's always nebulous. And again, I don't make any claims like, did this team actually lose? But you'll see fans quoting and be like, "Oh, I didn't know Michigan actually lost." Didn't say they actually lost, but it does tell you a lot about the game with one stat there of a negative success rate. Say, like, if Ohio State had capitalized on some opportunities, Michigan would have had to do something different on offense, and we haven't necessarily seen Michigan be able to do the keep up with a good offense yet. So that's at least interesting.
We're probably going to come back to that thought to close the show. We're not there yet. Michigan, Iowa was the last item on the agenda. Then there was Tulane. Kind of like Michigan relied on turnovers to put Ohio State behind the ball. Tulane relied on turnovers. UTSA was a -4 in the turnover margin. Frank Harris, those 2 interceptions, and that allowed Tulane to dictate the game on the ground. And that, as somebody who had a nice UTSA future, I was very disappointed to see that's how that game went. But credit to Tulane. You got to make the most of those opportunities, and they did.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that was I'm all over the place now. Was this I took this over on the show, correct?
I don't think you took this here.
I think I took it somewhere else. That's great. I'm all over the internet.
You did not have an over here because that would have been even more shocking than Parker Fleming taking 2 unders.
I took an over here and hate that they had a fumble and a downs and a turnover. Just absolutely. It was the Houston game again. There's 3 UTSA games under Jeff Traylor that have just been infuriating. This one, the Houston game earlier this season, and then the Troy Bowl game last year, where they absolutely should have covered. They should have won outright all 3 of those, and they just turnovers and they blew it away. So that was just it does feel like Jeff Traylor has a couple of those in him, especially with Frank Harris at quarterback. Great, very fun team, great season for being in the mix for the conference championship, moving up a level. Very, very impressive, but very, very frustrating this weekend to see that. Washington survive in advance. I don't know,
good enough.
I think the only thing to take away is like Michael Penix feels bad. That might matter. I don't know if he was vomiting, but he did not celebrate and got helped off the field.
Covered him up. They hit him from cameras. I'm not going to speculate. It's not a great look as you go into one of maybe the biggest game this weekend. The other big game last weekend, which it defied comprehension. It was exactly what we predicted, although a few too many points for your taste. If not for that last touchdown, that 4th and 31, that absurdity to the corner, you would have cashed that under. Alabama 27, Auburn 24. Alabama will not die. Tap the sign. This team will not die.
Yep, and again, feel like I had the narrative exactly 100% on point there, and perversely knew that I was going to lose the under, and knew that I had to root to lose the under because of my Alabama futures. When Auburn scored again, I was like, "Yep, I don't even care if this gets stay under. I don't want Auburn. I don't want the under to hit here. I don't want Auburn to win."
A 3-1 ticket matters more than a 1 week under. Absolutely. Speaking
of, to take the L there, yeah.
Speaking of some of our futures, win totals are in the barn. All numbers are tallied except for Army. I am still waiting on an Army to lose to Navy, and if Army loses to Navy, I will win that bet. If Army wins, I push. As is, Parker, you lose 0.85 units on your win total bets. I win 2.52 on my win total bets. We net 1 2/3 units. We'll take it. That's in the black.
Yeah, well, and that does not count our conference futures. That is just win totals. Okay, and I was going to say I'm just gonna bet $100,000 on Texas to win, and then I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna win either way with the Big 12 championship.
I don't know if that math is adding up as you wanted to. I do include my misguided USC pick'em at Notre Dame in my 2.52 on pure win totals. I was plus 3.52. And let's take a moment. Let's take 1 second here to give a tip of the cap in appreciation to Auburn national championship winning head coach, North Carolina defensive coordinator, Gene Chizik, turning a 6-0 team into an 8-4 win total, cash the under 8.5. Well done, Gene Chizik and Mac Brown. How do you do it? I don't know.
Yeah, just a beautiful piece of work there. One of those like real life memes of the Undertaker coming out of the coffin and sitting up because you thought it was open or you thought it was over,
It was over.
immediately. And
Oh my goodness! Remember when they beat South Carolina? We were ready to pack it in then. Good grief! What a disgrace. Well,
yep.
They don't matter this week. I shouldn't spend so much time on it. What does matter this week is yes.
Oh, can I point out before we get to this week, because you were segueing great, and I just love derailing a good segue. I do want to point out, I believe Colorado State win total was 5 for me. If you bet that when you should have, you got that at 4 or 4.5 and you won. We bet that one late. That's a perfect example of shopping, not just across for different lines, but across time. And so that I will say, personally, that was a loss on the show. That was not a long-term loss because you could get it at 4.5 earlier in the offseason before it got steeped a little bit.
I don't know if I have one of these I can claim. I'm just going to remain bitter about Stanford beating Washington State. Washington State,
so dumb.
So
just such nasty work.
Should continue so I don't start cursing.
You were really living on the edge because you've got the Navy and the Army here.
Navy's already in.
Yeah, but Navy already hit, so you just need Navy to win this weekend perversely to get those. Yeah. Those a crash course for some fine line there, but I like how it worked out. Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's a personal problem that I may have some Air Force commanders in chief money, and now I need that to push, and for that to push, I need Navy. I need Navy to win.
Ooh, I'd be interested in. Can we do a segue on how they grade that for a second? Because Army has the trophy.
I've read, to my understanding, the book I placed today, it will be a push, and I need Navy to win. I need Navy to win for the win total. I am a little invested.
Army technically
next weekend
retains it. If Army loses, they retain it.
But retain is not win, Parker. Retain is not
interesting.
Win.
That's fun. Read the fine print. Yeah, read the fine print. That's great.
I'm trying not to think about that game too much just yet. I believe I had checked before the show just to reiterate. Army is a 2-point favorite, which is a line I disagree with, but that's a different conversation for another time.
We need to get to shows. It is. We need to get to shows. Can I just lastly say Auburn over 7 was a good bet. That was the right side. I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, no, that's.
I do it again.
Did I caption that in our spreadsheet here? Of
no. I'm just looking. I'm looking at the future. Yeah, I honestly, that was the right side. I don't feel bad about that at all.
Like, and Air Force was a great bet because it started out 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, and then just collapsed. And I don't get over 8.5. Like, that was
brutal.
You got to pull off one, but we're gonna.
Yeah.
Let's
Air Force have like did Air Force have like mono or something? We can't do this. We should do this in the off season. We should go through all this. But yeah, that's just some malaise. Golly.
There are conference championship games this weekend. We have futures on some of them. We have bets on others. We're going to run through them in chronological order because that made the most sense to me. And that starts with New Mexico State Liberty Friday night at 7 Eastern. To some, maybe a lackluster start to conference championship week, but I'm intrigued by it because New Mexico State has become a bludgeoning tool. And what's curious to me about this game is Liberty's defense is vulnerable to big plays. New Mexico State's offense doesn't really rattle off big plays. A weakness versus a weakness, I'm betting on the offense to come out in favor on that, at which point, yes, I'm taking New Mexico State plus 10.5. I believe that is available at neg 110 at Caesars, and I'm happy to be on the right side of the number. I'm maybe factoring in a little bit that Jamie Chadwell might get distracted this week. Don't rule it out. And if that were to occur, that would really help my case. And that's why you will also hear me say I'm putting a quarter of a unit on a New Mexico State money line at plus 325. That is just a little bit of Chadwell thinking that maybe he's distracted, but mostly here I'm betting the inexplosive offense against the explosive weakness defense breaks in the inexplosive offense's favor.
That makes a lot of sense. New Mexico State, kind of how they beat you, they're very balanced, and they're just going to say, we're going to put pressure on both your run and pass, and whichever one breaks, we're going to try to exploit it. Liberty, 97th in EPA per pass allowed, 96th in EPA per rush allowed. not great overall. There is some opportunity there. Liberty is getting better as the season goes, which I think is, again, I'm just planting my flag as or taking a victory lap, wrong metaphor. Taking a victory lap there, just saying, like, I expected the Chadwell offense to open up as they installed it and they understood it better. That offense is up to 15th in EPA per play when you adjust for opponent. So feel pretty good that worked out there. This will be a really, really fun one to watch. I did have some interest in Liberty minus 10. You 10.5 is obviously a little bit closer there, but so I'm a little bit on the other side of that. Not enough for the beer bet because the odds are different. I don't want to take 10.5, but I was actually leaning towards Liberty on this one.
All right, I hear your doubt. I'll remember that for next week. I'll file that away. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'm going to be worried about Friday night is Oregon-Washington. We touched on Michael Penix's question marks earlier. I am sitting on a plus 360 Washington future. I would prefer they be playing anybody else in this game because then Washington would be favored and be a very easy hedge for me. As is, I'm going to sit here and just be anxious. I don't think I'm going to do anything with that game aside from be anxious. Oregon is a 9.5-point favorite.
Yeah, hard to it's hard to get a read on where Washington is right now. We talked about that a little bit there, but I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is Washington's defense is down to 28th in EPA per play, and particularly they're down to 94th in points per quality possession allowed, 3.76. What was the difference in the first game? Oregon didn't finish a couple possessions. They've gotten a lot better at that. They're at second in points per echo. What I'm interested in, and I hope it doesn't change, I'm interested in how does Dan Lanning's decision-making change?
Oh, absolutely.
It should not change. If it
What's
was
the name of this show? What's the name of this show?
Right. Don't punt, Dan Lanning. Don't do it. I would, if I was conducting a coaching search and Dan Lanning clammed up in this game, red flags everywhere to me because the process is either right or it's not. And I think it was right. And I would like to see them be aggressive again. Also, just for fun, what a flex it would be for Dan Lanning to go for it on fourth down and score a touchdown and win the game. I think that moment sets up really nicely as well. But I do think that they should trust the process, but that is a variable I'm watching here just to see as he is trying to win, does he get more conservative? I hope he does not because I do believe he was right in the first game.
When you have an 11 against a 10, you double down. It's not comfortable. You're uneasy, but you double down, and that's what Dan Lanning has to do. That said, I still want my plus 360 to come home.
Yeah, right. So it's a fine line, absolutely. And Oregon -9 is a little too much for you to try to hedge.
I'm not gonna put myself in an awkward position of having Oregon by 9, and the money line there is going to take away almost all of my value. I will say I was surprised to see it at 9.5. If I didn't have this future, I would be taking some Washington already because 9. Michael Penix may or may not be hurt. We don't know. We don't know. This is a very uncertain situation. That offense can keep this game to one possession or a possession and a half and then backdoor it. 9.5 is a big number.
If it goes 10,
yeah,
I would hit it. I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's get a little action in here. Let's squeeze a little action in as we can. Douglas, I just want to phrase this statement in the form of the question. Miami's defense is good enough to muck this game up where they could hit an explosive play on offense and win the game. Singular explosive play on offense and win the game.
I'm going to stall for a second just to make this soundbite long enough that producer Jacob can clip it because you simply said Miami's defense, and now in the wrong context, people are going to think you're talking about the Hurricanes and not the Redhawks. Miami of Ohio's defense is good enough that this could become a thing. And much like my New Mexico State Liberty thought, Jason Candle might be distracted this week. It doesn't look like he's going to get the Syracuse job, but would anybody be surprised if he's up for some others? In part because of that, in part because I don't know how Miami of Ohio has gotten here, but they have. It's a credit to Chuck Martin. It's a credit to that defense, and I'm going to bet on that defense. This number is sitting at plus 7.5 pretty much everywhere. Oh, we got an 8. Producer Jacob comes through for me. I can get an 8 at Bet River Sugar House. We always love it. And this is why, folks, this is why, one, it's nice to have producer Jacob checking the lines. What's he doing? He's using a bet comparison tool like betstamp.app. We recommend using one of those because it's the easiest way to improve as a sports bettor. Use multiple sports books. Always get the best odds. Why do we specify that bet was at Bet River /Sugar House? They're the same operation, just different names. Because that way you can go to that QR code up in the corner, scan it, and get a quick sign-up page to Bet Rivers or Sugar House and get that bet in before it changes. You want that because that's the easiest way to get best value, best odds, and you do it and save time and money. Appreciate your help today, producer Jacob. Give me that +8. Go to betstamp.app/hitthebooks. Should be in the show description. Should be in the comment section. Use that to get these easy betting tools. Getting me that +8 is a great example. And then on top of that, I'm going to, again, take the healthy money line on an underdog. And again, producer Jacob gets me a better line. Quarter of a unit on Miami, Ohio at +250 is available at Caesars. And in some respect, I'm hoping one of those underdogs wins outright and I'm in the green. And I don't have to worry about a whole lot else. That's kind of the thought here. I'm playing a little risky on Conference Championship weekend, but I'm willing to bet on Miami, Ohio's defense and Chuck Martin when the time has finally come for them to win this conference.
Another thing to watch that makes me interested in the underdog here, Miami, huge field position advantage against Toledo, which low bar, pretty easy to do. But 5th in starting field position on offense, whereas Toledo is 72nd. They're 3rd in starting field position allowed on defense, whereas Toledo is 47th. So again, you've got some margins going in your favor. All Miami needs is a couple explosive plays. And let me give you some optimism on this play. Toledo's defense, 34th in defensive success rate allowed, 73rd in EPA per play. When your EPA is worse than your success rate, you're giving up those explosives. The tender is there. Look, we've set up the logs. We got a little tender. The conditions are right. Everything's dry. All we need is the spark here. And I think Miami can do this.
I don't think I've ever made a prediction ahead of the weekend of the did you really get beat that bad chart. What you're suggesting to me is if Miami, Ohio wins this game, it's probably going to be on the left side of that chart nonetheless. And I'm okay with that. Capitalize on some field position, a couple of big plays, win me the ball game. That's good enough for me. And the other thing to mention here is, again, much like New Mexico State, I got 10.5 there. I'm getting 7.5. I'm on the right side of the number, and I'm willing to stick with it.
Yep, love that. Absolutely love that. That'll be a fun one. Yeah, the Miami wins if that one's nasty. That one might be nasty anyway, but I think that's the way that Miami wins if it's a nasty game. Speaking of nasty games, let's go ahead and go over to the Big 12. Not so much because this is going to be a nasty game, but because we've got a lot of orange here. There's just a whole lot of orange in Texas and Oklahoma State. Analysis. Oklahoma State, Texas, 14.5. I think you can get it some places. I'm going to open the floor to you. Douglas, what's your advice for me holding an Oklahoma State ticket here? I think that what I'm going to do, and I'll just let you evaluate it and do some analysis here in a minute. Texas minus 14.5 is my move. I think this is right. I have this on the numbers. I think that Oklahoma State's rushing attack is good, but Texas's interior is so stout. Oklahoma State 19th in EPA per rush. Texas is 2nd in EPA per rush. I don't believe that Oklahoma State's going to be able to generate success to stay ahead of the chains. We've seen Oklahoma kind of have a senior spring the last couple of weeks against some of these new Big 12 schools. I think they've actually kind of gotten handled on the lines a little bit worse than they thought. And against Texas, that's absolutely going to be a disadvantage for them. And so I'm going to go ahead and go with Texas as the favorite here. Now, knowing that I have the 65-1, talk to me.
First of all, let's make it clear. That was an official show play. The 14.5
yes.
Texas, that's a show play. In our futures picks, we have that. We both have a 10th of a unit on 65-1. And Parker, let's say off the top, hedging conversations are always personal preference. There is no true math. There is no the smartest and sharpest gamblers. There's no true math to hedging. It comes down to how comfortable you are with what's at stake. We have a 10th of a unit at 65-1. We're going to speak in dollars here to make it a little simpler. We have $10 on 65-1. So we could win 650. And you know what? For your future stake, that would about cover everything you did. You could lose everything else and you'd come near covering, which is what you're hoping for. If you were looking to guarantee profit, that gets tough with a 2-touchdown underdog. You can't quite get down to neg 600. You get down to neg 650 to make the math easier, and because it's more commonly available, I'm going to call it neg 700. So you could bet $70 on Texas to win back your 10, or you then have a 90. You still have a massive profit available. You could bet $140 to guarantee yourself some profit. If you were like, hey, I need to make sure I get something out of this, I'd go as high as 210, guarantee yourself a $20 profit or a $440 profit. But it's all personal preference. What you are doing with this 14.5 is not a hedge. What you are doing with that 14.5 is a chance of losing everything. And that is why we want to be very clear. That's not a hedge. That is a bet. If you want to assure you, in this instance, at 65-1, you could bet 210, bet 280, and still be guaranteeing yourself a significant profit. I am the kind of person who, look, I'm single. I don't have kids. I can take risks, and I don't have anybody getting angry at me. I'm going to let these things ride more often than not because that's how I live much of life, for better or for worse. I can understand anybody who wants to guarantee that profit. Hedging is entirely a personal conversation.
I'm actually would advise a reverse emotional hedge here to someone in my position. So you can take Texas as a favorite. You could take Texas as the money line, but you want to put little enough on it that if Oklahoma State wins, you can laugh because that's the funniest outcome here. Absolutely. Of just Mike Gundy winning this game would be absolutely hilarious. I've said it all season, funniest season of Mike Gundy's career, all off season. They lost the transfers. It was toxic culture. They don't know what they're doing. Is Gundy washed? And they lose to it. They get their breaks beaten off by a G5 team that's actually not that good. And they get their breaks beaten off by UCF 2 weeks ago. And they're still here in the Big 12 championship with a legitimate shot to win the game. So
and you're saying it's funny on the Mike Gundy scale. It's even funnier when you think the final Texas moment in the Big 12 will be losing a playoff bid to Mike Gundy in Oklahoma State. Like, yes, if you're going to hedge, Parker's got a great point. Limit yourself so that you still want all of the Oklahoma State profit because you also get the laughs.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we can't laugh, what are we doing here? The other thing to point out about this that I think is just so special. Oklahoma State on offense, 97th in points per quality possession, 3.26 points per quality possession is what they're averaging. Texas, 116th on offense, averaging 2.93. Douglas, Texas is averaging less than a field goal when they get a first down inside the opponent.
And I don't even look this up anymore because I've been harping on Texas's finishing drives all season. I've said all season it was going to cost them another game. It nearly did twice. Do you know how bad 2.93 is? Before Wake Forest played Notre Dame, Wake Forest was at 2.6. You should not be comparable to Wake Forest offense and be considered a playoff contender in any respect. That's how bad Texas is at finishing drives. It's comparable to Wake, needed 3 quarterbacks this season, Forest.
Yeah, it's very, very rough. It's certainly probably the deciding factor in, like, if Texas makes the playoff, I'm pretty sure I'm going to bet against them within reason on the line just because they can't finish. They can't finish drives, and that's going to come back to get them. Last week against Texas Tech, they were 1 for 8 on touchdowns in quality possessions. 1 for 8. So great. You generate 8 of them. You still got to score. We saw it with Ohio State last year. Great. You march down the field. Cool. You can't score against Georgia. You can't score touchdowns. You're going to lose.
You want to be 4 for 8, 5 for 8. 1 of 8 is inexcusable, but we need to keep moving because that's another item, much like Stanford beating Washington State, that I will spiral on if we spend too much time on Texas finishing drives. The Mountain West turned to the computers to decide on this conference championship game. It got very confused, and it decided on Boise State at UNLV, Boise State going to Las Vegas, and Boise State still a 2.5-point favorite. I don't know how much home field gets baked in at this time of year. It should. Game total of 58.5. Parker, you have some interest here.
Yeah, I like UNLV as a favorite, actually. So I'm going to do what I did last week and take UNLV plus, oh my gosh, I should have this right here, plus 2.5, minus 110, FanDuel, Caesars, wherever. You can get it a lot of places. I'm also going to take UNLV on the money line. I think the best line I saw there was plus 118 at Caesars. So I'm going to go, that's 2 separate plays there. I'm going to go full unit on both of those. I like this
full unit,
a good amount on both of these. Yeah.
Boy.
And I think a couple of things really, really stand out here. When UNLV's defense has been bad, it's been bad against the pass, 83rd in EPA per pass. That's not what Boise State's going to do. They're going to try to run. UNLV could credibly spy them. That being said, Boise State on offense, even in the passing game, does not have a great first option. Obviously, had some issues with the transfer portal. I think their next highest receiver is a 15% target share. So going to have to ask somebody to step up. UNLV rushes a whole lot on offense. They're 6.8 percentage points above average in terms of rush rate over expected, but they're 40th in EPA per play. So there's that nice kind of mix of, hey, we're going to run on you, we're going to make you defend it, and then we're going to hit efficiency. Boise State secondary has been not great, 85th in EPA per pass. Their rush game is 93rd. I like UNLV to get pointy. I like UNLV to score. I think Boise State will have some big runs. I absolutely do, but I do think that UNLV is the right side here with their combination of efficiency or explosiveness on the passing side, and the fact that their defensive strength matches up well with what Boise wants to do. So give me the Rebels at home. Give me them both money line and as a +2.5.
Bold putting a full unit on that, but I'm all about it. I endorse it strongly. The next game on the list, we had L, credit to L, in the comments half an hour before the show, wondering about the SEC championship game. You love to see it. That has Bama at +6. Parker, you're sitting on a 3-1 Bama to win the SEC future because Alabama will not die. What are you thinking for this one?
I think, okay, I don't have a play. I'm not gonna play on this. I'm gonna sit back and just watch the zombie team and see what they do. My number has this Georgia by about 4.5. And I think that sounds about right. The smell test pretty good there. Looking at the numbers here, the biggest issue is Alabama's inconsistency on offense. We've seen that a team can try to physical, can muck them up, can play coverage and get through to this offensive line. I don't think the offensive line for Alabama is bad, but we've seen that, like, if Milroe can't get rid of it quick, those late developing passes, he really couldn't throw many of those against Auburn at all. And I think Georgia's defensive front is going to be a lot better in terms of being able to disrupt that. Also, Douglas, what can Georgia do that Auburn can't? Pass the ball. Most things, but specifically, Auburn can't pass the ball. Georgia's going to be able to pass the ball. They've got Bowers back. McConkey's looking really good. They've got a lot of options there. They're 12th in EPA per pass, 3rd in passing success rate. So I think I really the points here this gets, the more it favors Georgia. Again, obviously, you want the low total if you're the underdog here. That Auburn game, I think you could try to write it off a little bit as like Jordan Hare magic, but I do think that it was a good game plan to kind of expose the apparent flaws in Alabama. And I think Georgia has a pretty good blueprint of what to do to take care of business here.
I did mean to crack a joke earlier when we were on Alabama-Auburn. You know that botched snap that went behind Milroe and he had to lose 10, 15 yards to get it? Was that self-awareness that it's the dink and bomb, and at that point they could not dink their way to the end zone, so he needed to create that much space for the bomb?
I mean, 3 or 30, so you got to get back to 30.
I mentioned that now because that's not going to work with Georgia. You make that kind of mistake, you are crippled. I was a little dismayed last week when Georgia didn't cover and beats Georgia Tech by only 8. And it went beyond just Georgia Tech's closing strongly. Georgia Tech had decent offensive success the entire game. And I have to think Georgia was looking ahead. I was hoping to see Georgia really clean up there, so I'd have some confidence in a Georgia play this week. If I can convince myself Georgia was looking ahead, then I will probably take 6. But I need to convince myself on that a little further. I thought Georgia had turned it on and could just dismiss Georgia Tech, and that did not occur.
Well, and I will say in Georgia Tech's defense, their offense is scrappy. It's like legitimately good. I think they're like top 20 in EPA per play.
Georgia's defense. This
is not okay, but this is not 2021. Like, Georgia's defense is just good. It's not otherworldly, life-crushing, soul-altering. It's just very good.
What was that string of adjectives?
Exactly.
L is pointing out that maybe I missed it. Bowers and McConkey did not play against Georgia Tech. But again, my bigger problem was the Georgia defense.
They don't play defense. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
We should keep moving. We have my favorite game of the weekend. I got it home. I placed winning futures in the Sun Belt. Appalachian State, I've got you 7-1. Troy, I've got you at about 3.5 to 1. I am thrilled. I will relish in this. That game is going to be a joy. And obviously I'm cheering for Appalachian State because the payout is twice as good. Appalachian State is a 6.5 point underdog, which I don't love.
Yeah. Amazing that we're here. We've talked about it. We did the segment a little bit earlier that is just like, how did we get here?
So dumb.
But we are here.
Credit to Appalachian State. 5-game winning streak is a 5-game winning streak.
James Madison should be in this game. I just want to say it out loud, but knowing that's a variable, whatever, we're past that. A couple of things stand out to me here specifically. I think Troy's really struggled to run the ball this season. They're 120th in EPA per rush, 104th in rushing success rate. Even as they are pretty balanced, what's really nice for Troy in this spot is that App State can't defend the run to save their lives. They're 127th in EPA per rush. And their rush rate over expected against is just 1 percentage point more. So teams are not like exploiting one weak unit or anything. Like their defense really, really struggles in the run game. There is no outlier. And so I think that certainly favors Troy being able to run the ball. They are pretty balanced on offense. On defense, specifically, Troy is great at finishing drives. They're 10th in points per echo allowed. They're also third and fourth down success allowed, which is where App State has made a little bit of hay. They're 27th in third and fourth down success on offense. So I see this matchup, and I think all signs point to Troy for me here. As who should win this game. I've got this at about exactly 6. So I don't know if there is a value play at 6.5, especially with the futures tied up. But I do think that Troy is very clearly the better team. And I mean, watching that number, but I don't know we're going to get better than 6.5.
You touched on what I'm most curious about, what I'm most interested about this game. You mentioned Troy's defensive echo rate, and you mentioned one of the echo rates. When Appalachian State has the ball, it finishes drives. Troy doesn't let that happen. When Troy has the ball, it fails to finish drives, which Appalachian State also struggles. Like, this is weakness on weakness in the red zone, inside the 40 when Troy has the ball, and it's strength on strength when Appalachian State is driving. So it's going to come down to that dynamic of who can finish drives or who can show up when they don't usually.
Yeah, makes sense. I like when you have those kind of matches there, and it's kind of like who's gonna what trend is gonna open up. That's something I have tabbed for the offseason. Douglas is a lot more explicit research on like who controls, does offense or defense control more of a game. So does it matter more that you're good at finishing drives, or matter more that a defense is good at preventing finishing drives? And I think we could have some fun with that this offseason.
I look forward to those results. The other thing I look forward to is SMU Tulane. No Preston Stone for SMU. He's out for the season. We have we've covered 5 in the comments saying doesn't matter. Wants to take Tulane on the money, SMU on the money line, and I'm not so sure that's a great idea. Parker, you're going with a play here that I'll be fully honest. I considered. I noticed how much it fell since Saturday, and I grabbed it on Saturday, which is why I'm not joining you now. But I obviously agree. I lean with you.
Yeah, so one, I have Tulane favored outright by a decent amount. I have them rated better than
and
SMU.
Your numbers do not adjust for Stone being out.
Hold on. I said that backward. I have SMU favored by a good amount, but it does not account for Stone being out. So that's the discrepancy here. I don't know that he's worth a touchdown on the money line, but I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not going to play a side in this one because I don't know what SMU's offense is going to look like. That being said, SMU's offense with Stone is 64th in the nation. The key here is SMU's defense that has been super, super nasty. And if you look last week at that Tulane UTSA game, like we talked about, UTSA had every opportunity and just gave it away. Tulane forced a couple fumbles, but I do expect this to be a defensive battle. So this number did get pretty low here, but I actually like an under. I can't believe I'm taking an SMU under, but the games that have gone over for them this year have been games where they either get absolutely blown out, or they absolutely blown out opponent. If you look at like the Oklahoma game, for instance, they can stifle some offenses, and with this defense, it's been very, very good. I've got under 48. It's minus 110. At Caesars Bet MGM. I think we're going to go low scoring here. I think we're going to go completely opposite of what you think of the traditional SMU game is. This year, they've been very, very good defensively, and Tulane has also been very, very stout. So I'm going to go with the under in absence of the knowledge of whether Stone is healthy or not. I mean, well, he's not. Sorry, Stone's not healthy. In absence of the knowledge of what SMU's offense looks like without Stone.
And it's the kind of situation where both teams will be willing to junk it up. SMU may need to. Tulane, as we saw last week, those 4 turnovers are how they got the job done. Junking it up, I would rather it be 49, 50, 51 as it was days ago. But the 48, that's about the last number I would take it at, for the record. For anybody out there thinking about it, 48 is where you should draw the line for obvious math reasons. It will be good to have that as the only moment this weekend where there are 3 games on. Because while we are interested in SMU Tulane, it may be the ugly game. You don't want to watch every single snap.
Yep.
Because come Saturday night, we have only 2 games on. First of all, Parker, you were sitting on a 13-1 Louisville ticket. And boy, for the worst reasons, Jordan Travis injury, that Louisville ticket looks real good right now. Florida State a 2.5-point favorite in prime time on Saturday night. I don't think you're going to hedge at all. I think you're going to sit there and hope for that to come home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the injury, it makes that an easy decision. And I will say, I feel very, very great about three things this season. One, I feel great about saying, what if Gundy is going to pull this off and having a little bit there. I feel great about saying Cincinnati is a terrible football team and the program's in a really bad spot. And I feel very, very great about saying Louisville, you don't have to play the two best teams in your conference. You're probably going to make it to the conference championship game. And that absolutely worked out here. The injury, obviously can't foresee that, can't account for that. Florida State didn't look totally inept in a rivalry game without Travis, but it does swing things in Louisville's favor a lot for me, I think, here.
I pulled up our future sheet to humble you, but you know what? I'm going to be kind. I'm going to move us forward.
The only things that count are me being right. Everything else, I don't care about that. That's fine.
Hey, everybody, did you know Parker's 21-0 on the show this year?
You got to start moving. You got to swim forward, right? Got to swim forward.
You sound a lot like an Iowa fan. The only thing that matters is you win. And Iowa doesn't do it in a pretty way. And this weekend, I don't think it's going to do it at all. The way we were discussing Michigan earlier, as you can tell, I've moved on to the Big Ten. We were discussing Michigan earlier. You pointed out that they're starting to show up on the left side of the "did you really get beat that bad" graph with some frequency. And it's not that they're ever worried about the games. The left side of that graph is where Iowa football resides. Think they've got a nice spread, a few acres. That is where the Ferenc family estate is. Michigan is going to out Iowa. This game has a total of 35.5. The spread is 23. That's not normal. The Iowa points total over under in each half is 0.5 point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very rough. I had someone ask me on Twitter if, where the odds to Iowa is to score. And then they said, Iowa to score an offensive touchdown versus a special teams touchdown. And I think because Michigan's good enough at special teams that it might actually be more likely that Iowa gets a BS big run late and scores an offensive touchdown than they do any kind of special teams magic here. 129th in opponent adjusted offensive efficiency. 129th. That's not a joke. It's terrible.
The Big Ten, the last year of Big Ten divisions is going out in the most beautiful possible way. We have the number 1 or number 2 team in the country going against an offensive coordinator-less Iowa. It's kudos to you, Big Ten. You were Big Ten to the end.
I actually hope that, yes, Big Ten committing to the bit in this current iteration. I actually hope Michigan scores 55 points on them. I hope Michigan beats the ever-loving heck out of them, because the whole meme of you can be Iowa and compete nationally.
Iowa fans already think we hate them. We made our Never Punt logo Iowa colors.
I don't even care. I do. It is the dumbest thing, because so complimentary football absolutely exists. Do you know what complimentary football looks like?
You need two sides.
Football looks like
things that complement
Michigan having a great offense, getting up early, and then sitting on the game and squeezing the life out of their opponents, right? It does not look like Iowa needing an arguable call about a punt return wave, whatever, to beat a 5-7 Minnesota team. That's not complimentary football. You're bad at offense, and you're doing it by design. I'm over it. I hope Michigan beats them by 500.
So things that have made us angry today, me remembering Stanford beat Washington State, me talking about Texas's inability to finish drives, and the entire existence of Iowa football under Kirk Ferentz. That is Never Punt, Never Parlay. We've got a handful of plays this week. Quick recap on them. I'm taking New Mexico State plus 10.5 to win the CUSA. I also have them as a 1/4 of a unit on the money line to win the CUSA. And then I have Miami of Ohio. Get the job done. 7 in the hook. I'm taking 7 in the hook, and I like it. And then I'm going to live dangerously. 1/4 of a unit, 245. Go ahead, check Chuck Martin. Get your conference title. Parker, you've got 3 as well, although actually it's 4.
I have 4 here. I'm going to go Texas as the big favorite in the Big 12 championship, minus 14. I'm going to take UNLV plus 2.5, minus 110. And I'm going to go ahead and just go with the money line, because
you said a full unit
there. Yeah, let's do it. I'm not scared. And then SMU Tulane, I'm going to go under 48. That's minus 110 in what may be the nastiest game of the weekend.
we should let the folks know we will be here all bowl season, continuing Tuesdays at 4 Eastern, including next week. We're just going to rattle them off 10 games at a time to get you through the bowl season. So tune back in next week, December 5th, 4 p.m. Eastern, here on the Hit the Books HQ channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network. Parker, we missing anything?
I think we're good. For Douglas Farmer, I'm Parker Fleming. This has been Never Punt, Never Parlay, and we'll see you next Tuesday.